Archaic Records.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Archaic Records here with you again. My name is Jamie, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Here to wish you a very happy Morrissey Monday, my weekly celebration of all things Morrissey and the Smiths. In this week's episode, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about Italian live bootleg Higher Education. Now, this album was recorded in 1991. And this particular CD was released on KTS Records. Now, personally speaking, I am sort of a huge fan of collecting bootlegs. I do have several of them in my sort of Morrissey collection. And I would say that for me, that's sort of their primary purpose. These things to me are generally just sort of collection pieces. I wouldn't say that I necessarily go back and pull these things out and listen to them super frequently, but I did just pull this one out earlier this week and listen to it, and I thought it would be a good topic for this week's episode. I remember when I first sort of discovered what bootlegs were, when I first sort of started collecting bootlegs. It was probably back in sort of the early 1990s. I was still living up in my hometown, and we had in our little hometown, downtown area of my hometown, we had four very vibrant record stores back in those days, back in the early 1990s. We had a tower, and then we had a record store called Sundance, which was a really cool record store. It was a place that I frequented quite a bit. We also had a place on the other side of downtown that was more geared at the time towards sort of like the older generation. I think I've sort of jokingly described in the past on this channel that particular record store was frequented a lot by dads and kind of aging hippies who were going in there looking for Grateful Dead type records. And then we had a record store right downtown, which was my personal favorite. The place was called The Underground. And to me, that was really like my mecca. That place was just unbelievable. The first time I ventured in there, it completely changed my life. And if I wasn't at my house or at my job in those days, you could probably more often than not find me in there sifting through the bins. It was at that record store, and that place was just incredible. They sold, they had like a head shop in the back. They sold CDs, records, t-shirts, posters, the big European wall posters, which were a favorite of mine back in those days. And if you walked into the record store, you walked in and you veered over to the right just a little bit, there was a special counter, which for a very long time over there I had no idea really what it was. But it had a bunch of CDs on it and a book where you could order CDs. And all the CDs kind of looked like this. They were sort of the kind of lo-fi, sort of low-budget, unofficial looking artwork. And for a long time, I had no idea what those CDs were. I remember even a few times going over there and finding an artist, one of these CDs by an artist I liked. And I would turn it over and I would look at the track listing and I would think, well, I already have all these songs, so what is this? Is this just like a compilation, or what is this? It wasn't until I had to have somebody explain to me what these were and what a bootleg actually was, where I was just like, oh, okay. And as soon as I sort of learned and realized what these things were, I really just fell in love with the idea and really just started collecting as many as I could find. Now, at that particular store that I used to shop at in my hometown, they had a bunch of these in stock, usually right behind the counter. Of course, you had to ask to see them. I mean, even back in the early 90s, these CDs were usually $40 or $50. But they also had a book you could flip through, and you could sort of place special orders. I do remember placing a couple special orders for bootlegs back in those days. They would generally show up, within a week they'd call you you'd go down there and have to pony up, at least for me, working a fast food job at the time, what I thought was some pretty serious dough. But generally speaking, these things were something that I just really loved collecting once I kind of discovered what they were. And I still do. Like I said, I have several of these Morrissey bootlegs in my collection. And of course, the thing with bootlegs, which is always sort of the risk, especially ones going back to the 1990s. This one, as I mentioned, was recorded in 1991. Obviously, sometimes the sound quality can just be really butt on these things. Sometimes it sounds, sometimes it sounds like it was recorded on somebody's really horrific tape recorder. And so, on some of these albums, as I'm sure you all know, sometimes you just end up listening to people talk around the person recording the show. Sometimes, if you were lucky, you would get one that sounded like it was recorded, right off of the soundboard, or somebody was able to somehow smuggle in some legitimate recording equipment. But that was always sort of the risk you took. But that was also sort of the fun in it. Now, this particular DVD, Higher Education, this was put out, as I mentioned, by KTS Records, an Italian bootleg company. I have no idea if they're still around. But I do remember back in the days, if you could find one that was put out on the KTS record label, that usually meant that the quality would be pretty good. Now, I don't know how discriminating they were in general, again, about the recordings that they released, but I do remember having several, or a few at least, CDs that were put out on the KTS label, and all of them sounded pretty good. This one is no exception. This one actually sounds really pretty good. I don't know that it's necessarily soundboard quality, but again, this one actually sounds pretty good. Now, there was an original pressing of this CD. This one is obviously a second print or second run of this CD, because there was the original run of this CD. You can find it out there. I'm sure there's still copies of it floating around, but the original pressing of this particular CD, Higher Education, Morrissey's name is misspelled on the top. On the original pressing, it is spelled with one S. So apparently, if you have a copy of the original press with the misspelled Morrissey name, that one is worth quite a pretty penny, apparently. But this one actually has, some pretty decent artwork. I actually do like the front cover. Again, it looks like a bootleg. It's very lo-fi, sort of. Of course, Morrissey wearing the black mesh shirt. That was one of his staples back in those days. I like the back artwork a lot also. And unlike a lot of bootlegs, or at least in my experience, this one actually has some very nice kind of art on the inside also. Now, I don't know that all of these photos were taken at this particular show necessarily, but they are some cool pictures. You got a picture with Morrissey and Alan White down there, kind of a solo one. And of course, Morrissey embracing one of his stage invaders and feeling very emotional about one of the songs he's singing, apparently right there. I do think that the sound quality and the art quality of this particular CD are actually pretty good. Like I said, I just pulled it out earlier this week, listened to it again. I haven't listened to it in quite a while. Now, this particular album was recorded on July 1st, 1991 in Holland. Of course, that would have been the Kill Uncle tour. That is an album that I absolutely love. I'll get more into the album further down the road when I actually do more of like a deep dive into it. But that was an album that when I first bought it, it sort of threw me off a little bit. It was a record that took a long time for me to kind of figure out how I felt about it. But after it finally kind of like stuck to me, it's a record that I believe is probably in my top 10 Morrissey records of all time. I believe when I did my Morrissey ranking on the very first Morrissey Monday, I believe it was number 10. I absolutely loved that record. This is a tour that I would have absolutely loved to have seen. Now, unfortunately for me, this tour and the record was a little bit pre my fandom, unfortunately. But I would actually love to go back and see the Kill Uncle tour, especially when you go over the sort of set list on this record. There's actually a lot of stuff on this record that I've never seen live. Of course, I didn't see Morrissey live myself personally until the Maladjusted tour in 1997. And I think by that point in time, some of this stuff had kind of sort of been removed, at least from being setlist staples. Some of this stuff I really have never seen. Generally speaking, I think that the band and his performance on this record are really good. He seems to be in very good spirits. He's rather chatty during this performance, which I think is usually a good sign. If some of the songs, if I had to sort of be a little bit nitpicky about it, some of the songs are a little bit too up-tempo, a little bit off-tempo for me. But his vocal performance and the band's performance on this record, generally speaking, I think are really good. And again, I think the quality of this recording, it makes it very easy to listen to. You're not sort of struggling through listening to a bunch of mud. Now, recently, I've always really been on the lookout for a bootleg or live version of my first ever Morrissey show, which was at the Warfield in San Francisco on the Maladjusted tour. And I recently stumbled upon a recording on YouTube that somebody posted of the show, my first ever show, but the sound quality of it's so bad, you really can't even make heads or tails of it. This one is very listenable. This one is quite fun to listen to. And again, this is a tour that even though I didn't see, I'm quite nostalgic for it because I love the record. And I would love to have gone back and see this tour. But the show starts, or at least the CD show starts, with the song Mute Witness off of Kill Uncle. An awesome version of that song. Really energetic, really fun to listen to. Morrissey's vocal performance on that song is absolutely awesome. And I don't know that I've seen that song Mute Witness live in person. I would have to, if I had to guess, I would say I probably haven't, sadly. I love that song. That is such a great song off of Kill Uncle. The second song off of this CD is a great, beautiful, awesome version of We'll Never Marry. Of course, Bone and Drag is my all-time favorite album. Morrissey or otherwise, doesn't matter. All-time favorite album. I absolutely love that song. There's not a bad second on the entire Bone and Drag album. So I love the song We'll Never Marry. This is a very beautiful version of that song. And again, I don't know if that's a song I've seen live in person. I don't know. I'm sort of thinking I haven't, but I do love that song. The third song on this is Pregnant for the Last Time. This is a pretty decent version of Pregnant for the Last Time. I would say that this isn't necessarily one of my favorite Morrissey songs of all time. I do like this version of it, and that is a song I know for a fact I've never seen live in person. But I think this version of it is pretty good. Again, not probably my favorite Morrissey song of all time. That goes into Every Day is Like Sunday, which is my all-time favorite song ever. I never get tired of hearing it. I realize when I say that it's not a very deep track, but I really don't care. Every Day is Like Sunday has pretty much always been my favorite Morrissey song. Amazing version of it. I mean, I've never heard a version of that song I don't like. I think I've said in the past, if I could go back in a time machine and see that every time he's ever sang that song, I probably would. just because it is my favorite song of all time. I never get tired of it. Great version of it. It's a little bit fast on this record. It's a little bit up-tempo, but it doesn't feel rushed. It just feels very energetic. Man, I love that song. The next song after that is a T-Rex cover, his version of Cosmic Dancer, which is absolutely beautiful. Of course, that was sort of a set staple back in those days for the band. I absolutely love this performance, this version of this song. His voice on this song is absolutely beautiful. You can tell he just really pours everything into it. That is just a great song, period. If you don't like the song Cosmic Dancer, you might want to go get your ears checked, because that is the goods. Whether it's a Morrissey version of it or a T-Rex version of it, I absolutely love the song Cosmic Dancer. And he does it a very good service with this version of that version of it. The next song is Disappointed. I would say this version of it is okay. It's not really the best performance of this song I've ever heard. Again, it was the very last track off of Bone of Drag, my favorite album of all time. Now, fortunately, I have seen Disappointed live, I think a few times. This version of it is okay. It seems a little bit rushed. It seems a little bit sloppy. Probably not one of the highest points on this performance. But, there's really not anything that's offensive on this concert. But I would say Disappointed is a little disappointing. Next song is Our Frank. I mean, who doesn't love that song? One of my favorite songs off of Kill Uncle. Fortunately, that is a song I have seen live. This version of it is really good. Again, it's a little bit up-tempo compared to the studio version. I wouldn't say it's rushed by any means, but it is a little bit up-tempo. Good version of it. Again, man, that is one of the cuts off of Kill Uncle, and I have seen that one live. The next song for me the next song is a cover by, for me, what is the greatest punk band of all time, The Jam. The song is called That's Entertainment. Great version of it. That has been a staple of the Morrissey set list for a very long time. I have seen him play That's Entertainment several times over the years. I love it. I love his version of it. I love when he sings it. Of course, I'm pretty partial to the Jam version of it also. Coming up on this channel very soon, I will be doing an episode on the Jam, who I believe are the greatest punk rock band of all time. I challenge you to disagree with me. I absolutely am in love with the Jam. And I love Morrissey's versions of that song every time I've seen it. He does that song with a lot of fire and a lot of passion. Man, it's just a great song. The next song is I've Changed My Plea to Guilty. This is a very beautiful version of this song. Again, I think he really pours everything into it. Man, I just really love that song. The next song is Piccadilly Polari, which is one of my favorite songs off of Bone of Drag. Of course, it's the first song off Bone of Drag. I think I've talked about when I talked about Bone of Drag. I like the original version of Piccadilly Polari a little bit better than the anniversary remastered version with the extra verse. I actually kind of like the original one, or I do like the original one actually much better. I like the shortened version of it better. I don't think that extra verse from the remastered version really does anything for the song. This particular version of it on this concert is okay. I love that song. I don't particularly love this version of it. To me, it sounds just too much like the Stray Cats. The Stray Cats, to me, are a band that I kind of like. I love old 50s rock and roll and doo-wop. But when it comes to sort of contemporary, modern rockabilly, I get kind of weird about it. I like the Stray Cats. I have a bunch of their records. I'll probably talk about them at some point on this channel. But to me, the instrumentation, the music on this version of Piccadilly Polari is just way too rockabilly. I get it. This was, the rockabilly era. But it's just a little bit too Stray Cat sounding for me. I much prefer the studio version over this particular live version. I have seen Piccadilly Polari live myself, and I think it's been better when I've seen it than on this particular version of it. The next song is Sing Your Life. I absolutely love the song Sing Your Life. I think most Morrissey fans do. Again, I will say the same thing I just said about Piccadilly Polari. This particular version of it is just a little bit too 90s rockabilly for me. It's not bad. I don't really think you could make a bad version of Sing Your Life. But the instrumentation is just a little bit too 90s rockabilly. A little bit too like Big Sandy and the Fly Right Boys for me. Now, it's not a bad version. I love the song Sing Your Life. I think it's incredible. But for me, this version is a little bit too... I said it already. The next song is King Lear. This is also kind of a medley. It goes from King Lear into Driving Your Girlfriend Home. For the King Lear half of it, I would say it's pretty decent. It's not bad. They've kind of cut out the rockabilly-ness, if that's a word. And when it goes into Driving Your Girlfriend Home, I really like the second half of it. I love both King Lear and Driving Your Girlfriend Home. But Driving Your Girlfriend Home, I think, is one of the best songs off of Kill Uncle. And I really like that version. Man, Driving Your Girlfriend Home is a song I know I've never seen live, and I would love to. I absolutely love that song. This version of it, it's like the second half of a kind of a medley. It's really good. The next song is Last of the International Playboys. I mean, who doesn't love that song off of Bone and Drag? This is a very solid version of it. Very true to the original. Kind of sounds like just a live version of the studio version of this record. I love Last of the International Famous Playboys. Who doesn't love that song? Man, so good. And the performance ends, or at least the CD part of it ends, with November Spawned a Monster, one of my favorite songs off Bone and Drag. I think I've told you before, that might be one of my least favorite Morrissey videos. It's a little bit much sometimes, but he's got the shirt. He's got the infamous November Spawned a Monster shirt. I think that's the same one. He may have had multiples at that time. This is a really great version of November Spawned a Monster. The CD ends at that point. But really, like I said at the beginning, this is a very solid performance and a very decent sounding bootleg. Like I said, it was on KTS Records out of Italy. Their albums tended to be pretty high quality. And Morrissey and the band all seem to be very energetic. Man, if I had a time machine to go back and see the Kill Uncle tour, I would. Earlier this week, my wife and I took a trip up to Bowling Green, Kentucky. I mentioned it on my last episode. Found a couple cool record stores up there. One was called Mellow Matt's Music and More, which I absolutely loved. The other one was in their mall, as I talked about on the last Morrissey Monday video. Yes, my wife and I do go to the mall periodically. Don't judge me, man. But the whole reason, or the whole trip, apart from just getting out of Nashville for the day, the whole purpose of driving up to Bowling Green, Kentucky, was my wife found she's been sort of hell-bent over the past couple months to find a VHS player. I think she's very excited and very interested in starting a VHS collection. I think this officially makes us middle-aged hipsters. But she was able to find one up there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, off of Craigslist. So we drove up there, spent the day up there. Eventually met these people at their house, sort of up outside of Bowling Green, Kentucky. Man, it is beautiful up there. If you haven't had an opportunity to go to Kentucky, I will say it is absolutely beautiful up there. These people lived on this piece of property that was just unbelievable. But my wife picked up her VHS player. It was one of those things where it was the TV VHS combo. She was, like I said, she's been very excited to begin her VHS collection. I grew up in the 80s. At one point in time, I had a huge VHS collection, most of which was lost at one point. But we did go up there. We secured this VHS player, drove it back home, which gave me the opportunity to test out a couple of things that I've had in my collection. Now, these mostly are collection pieces at this point in time, especially since I haven't had a VHS player in many years. But these are things that I've collected and held on to over the years. We all hold on to this stuff. But the Morrissey Milady Lingers On VHS, got an opportunity to watch this again this week. You know, mostly just a collection of the videos. But there was something cool about watching these again on VHS with kind of the grainy VHS sort of quality. You didn't realize that VHS was grainy back in those days. But also I have this one, the Homerist VHS home video. Again, just more sort of video shorts. But it was fun to go back and watch this. Like I said, up until, I recently watched these. These are mostly just collection pieces I've held on to over the years. This one still has the shrink wrap on it and the original sticker. You can't really see that from a place called the Music Den. Now, I found these used several years ago, so I don't know what the Music Den was, but hopefully it was a cool place. I bet it was. But I was a little bit nervous, I'm not going to lie, putting these things into a strange VHS player that I hadn't tested, just because I would hate to lose these into a faulty VHS player. But it was a lot of fun to go back and kind of watch these. Like I said, I've had these for quite a long time. These are just, at this point in time, mostly just like collection pieces. I also have this, which is sealed. Now, I found this actually not too long ago. This I found at a local record store here in Nashville called Phonolux, which is the greatest record store in this city, at least. It's only open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I went in there a little while back, and somebody had brought in a whole bunch of music VHSs. But what this is a sealed pre-screen version of the Homerist home video. I don't know where this came from, but I was very happy to find it. This, for me, is a treasured collection piece. I mean, everything really is. Anything, I'm such a wonk for sort of collecting this stuff. Sometimes I feel like Morrissey sometimes has too much collectability. I think I've said this in the past when I talked about the first Kiss album. I'm just very grateful and very appreciative of the fact that I'm not a diehard Kiss fan, because if I were, I would just have no money. Because, this stuff with Morrissey becomes just collectible enough as it is. One more thing to touch on this week before I get out of here. That is, of course, a couple days ago, Johnny Marr just released his new single, Somewhere, single and music video for his upcoming Greatest Hits record. And I've been listening to the Somewhere song for the last couple days, and man, do I like it. I think it is very good. It is typical Johnny Marr, just brilliant guitar playing. Really good singing. I actually really liked the video. sort of on the YouTube comment section, some people were sort of trolling the video, talking about how low budget it looked, sort of the crappy video quality. I really loved it. I actually really like the fact that it features the band members that play with him. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I absolutely am just really into the solo Johnny Marr albums. I love the string of records he's put out. I will go into each one of them in more depth as this Morrissey Monday thing continues. I did do an episode already on the Johnny Marr and the Healers Boom Slang album, which I still really think is really good. But I really love the string of Johnny Marr solo albums. I do kind of wish that it was not just a best of. I do wish sort of it was a full-length new album, which I'm sure is in the mail and will be coming in at some point. But I really love the new song Somewhere. I really like the video. And I even kind of like the sort of aesthetic of the video. I know it looks a little iPhone-y, but that's okay. I really liked it. I think it's a great song. And I look forward to purchasing, even if it is a best of, purchasing the new Johnny Marr record, hopefully on vinyl. Anyway, man, thank you so much for checking out this video. This is Archaic Records in Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Jamie. If you liked this video, be sure to check back every week for Morrissey Monday, my weekly celebration of all things Morrissey and the Smiths. Be sure to check out the new Johnny Marr single, Somewhere. And until then, I will talk to you. Until next time, I will talk to you then.